Hey, welcome back to Split the Vote, the Ultimate Survivor Superfan podcast. My name is Tim. I'm joined by my co-host, not from Boston, but from New York, Rob. Rob, how's it going?
What's up, Tim? I'm doing well. Happy to be talking Survivor with you today. It's always a beautiful day when we get to talk. Yeah, man. How have you been doing? How have you been feeling?
I've been great. I recently just came back from BlurredCon, which is this nerd convention that happens every year. And this year was horror themed. I saw a lot of different characters from horror franchises. Specifically, I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, Rob, but Candyman. And in thinking about and seeing Candyman, I thought to myself, there's a player in this game, Survivor, that reminds me of Candyman to where if you say their name, you go home. And I'm sure we'll talk about who that person is later. But beyond that, I saw Janelle Monáe. It was amazing, incredible. And I was a nerd. I got the chance to just continue to be a nerd. And I loved it, every part of it. What about you?
That's awesome, dude. What's funny is that while you're at BlurredCon, you're thinking about Survivor in the back of your head, right? And excuse me. The last 2 days I've been working as milieu manager at my psychiatric hospital. And the whole
Hmm.
time when I'm there, I'm just thinking I'm playing Survivor. And I was thinking about how the patients at the hospital, they're a lot like they're soda bottles that have just been shaken ready to explode, and there's 18 of the patients at the hospital, and I feel like that's so similar to the island, how there's
Mm.
18 players and they're all just different Coke bottles, and someone's gonna shake up the right one and then everything's gonna explode and the game changes and the patients are out of control having their thoughts and their urges and everything. And I don't know, man, maybe it's like we just can't escape Survivor at all. It just follows us.
No, literally. Speaking of not escaping Survivor, shout out to Davey. Davey was at BlurredCon, the OG Blurred from David versus Goliath. So in some ways, literally, Survivor always is around me, which I love. Because who doesn't love Survivor? I feel like if you're listening, you of course love Survivor too. There's some other stuff that I love, Rob. One of those things being last episode. I think it's time we talk about it. Let's get into the tally.
Previously on Survivor.
So previously on Survivor, in the premiere, we see a whole new cast of people come together to play this game that we know and love. There's four core alliances that are being formed, or three core alliances that are being formed across all of these tribes with a majority of four. There's idols and advantages being found. Specifically, we see Say find her tribe's idol. We see that there's a player on the orange tribe who has not found it quite yet, but there's the purple tribe of Star finding the beware advantage, which soon to be perhaps a idol. There's so much happening. I just absolutely loved it. And if I could think of anything else to bring up from this premiere episode, it would be the major duo of David and Eva. We see it. We know the connection that they have now in this game, and we're on the edge of our seats as we wait to see how it unfolds. Unfortunately, last time we did see someone by the name of Stephanie, the incredible, amazing Stephanie, go home from her tribe as the first person voted out. Mary, of course, was blindsided, and I think Mary will definitely want to talk about that. And I think that Say's also going to have a lot to say about her name coming up this time. So that's a summary of the very first episode of this season. And I can't wait to get into this episode that we have today. This very incredible second episode that I personally really loved. Fantastic, 10 out of 10. If this was a movie and I was seeing it in theaters, I definitely would give it a 5-star rating because I loved it from head to toe. But, some stuff in the middle that we can talk about as well. So, Rob, I think it's time we split the vote.
Split the vote. All right, so diving into the first aspect of the episode that I want to talk about was this common theme that I noticed throughout the beginning portion of this episode, which really highlighted of how are you playing the game. And that the theme that I saw was team versus individual. There are so many, for me, I thought I saw a lot of examples of how players were really orienting their game for playing for the tribe. And there were others who were really playing the game at that individual level, playing for themselves. What sort of did you notice any of these events too?
I definitely did. I feel like there's this idea starting off on Survivor that I'm with my tribe, it's my tribe versus these other tribes. To an extent, that's true. But Survivor is never a team game. Survivor is about you and you only, because only you can win. There's a sole survivor, not a team survivor winner at this point in the game. I noticed that there's some players who will share information for the whole tribe to know and be a part of. We see this when it comes to the advantage for the tribe that Orange tribe, sorry, it's Siva who goes and looks for this idol together. But then of course there's these individual tasks that you have to do too. The way I look at it is we all can't win, even if we're all on the same team together. I have to make sure that I'm the best player on this team and that I'm going to be around to go to the championship when nobody else can. So I see it as Survivor's an individual game through and through.
I think that makes a lot of sense, but I don't think you can necessarily play the game at that individual level the entire time. And I honestly, like, I guess where my mind goes to is probably the Vula tribe, where at least in the first episode, continuing into the second episode, you see one player that's really highlighting a very individualized game, and that's Say. And I
Mhm.
think when you're playing an individual game, you get clocked by the other players. And not that that's a bad thing, but that just means that your game's a little more visible. It's a little out there. And I think you do really need to blend to the tribe and blend the game that you're playing. And the easiest way to do that is really through playing a for the tribe game. And I think one player that I noticed from the Logi tribe that's really playing that for the tribe game is Eva, especially when she's talking about how it's about loyalty to the tribe. Everyone's playing for each other, and that's immediately conflicted with Star, and where she's realizing where she needs to play this individualized game. But
Mhm.
let me ask you, when does the game switch from that individual to team and that team to an individual playing size, playing type of game?
I feel like it's as soon as you touch on the beach, as soon as your sand hit that feet, as soon as that sand hit that feet, wow, crazy Tim. Words. As soon as your feet hit that sand, it's like your game in your hands. Of course, if you're on a tribe that hasn't lost an immunity challenge, you can more easily have that mentality of, oh, it's the tribe, we're kumbaya, we're gonna look for this together. We're just like the bestest of friends. Survivor, family reunion, 2025 at that point. But as soon as you lose, somebody in this family is about to be exiled, excommunicated. Somebody has to go. So you can't all be here tomorrow. You can't all be around to enjoy what we all worked on together. So I don't think of it as a switch. I think of it as an already there kind of moment in imagination. Would you differ?
Yeah, I guess I do kind of disagree, because I think you have to play this game living in the moment, and you
Mhm.
have to try to shift the perspective of how other players perceive you. And I think a really easy way to do that is just trying to show everyone that I'm here for you, I'm here for us, rather than being the little sneaky robber in the back and playing for themselves. So I really do think you have to understand, where is your tribe in relation to your tribe? Like, where are you right now in this game? Because I think a player like Star would love to be playing a for the tribe kind of appearance of a game, but they just don't have the luxury because of their position in the game. And which requires them to look for the beware advantage and try to get that idol. And I think it's really about your situation rather than, well, this is the underlying portion of the game. Of course, Survivor is an individual game, but I feel like that can't be the game that you play every single moment.
Mhm. Especially if you're making it obvious, because if you're on the bottom, yes, it absolutely makes sense to have that mentality because it's everybody against you at that point. But if you don't have to reveal those cards yet of, hey y'all, this is my game, this is my strategy, the longer that you can hide your cards, the better off you might be on the game of Survivor. So I do see your point in making that statement. And speaking of this Lagi tribe, I want to just dive right into talking about them and their entire dynamics. For me, Rob, if I'm getting ready to run a race and my brother's a NASCAR driver, I'm not driving. My brother's gonna drive. So on Lagi, if Star is a basketball player and the challenge is having elements of basketball, Star is going to compete in this challenge. Luckily, they won it, but to me, that didn't make sense. But I talk about this tribe to segue us into who I think is a villain of sorts in the making, and that's Thomas. Thomas finds out about this advantage that Star has because Star's on the bottom. And he's like, just hide it. Just hide the second piece of the puzzle that Star needs to decipher this code. Personally, I love that moment. I thought it was a great show of that individual kind of mentality and game that we were just discussing. And I wasn't mad at it. Do you think that was too early to bring up that moment, or how do you measure that in your head?
Okay. Well, I guess where my head first goes to, like, what, they're like 4 or 5 days into the game right now. Well, as Charity said, 3 days on Survivor is like 3 years of living with these people, right? So if you're
Mm-hmm.
already a few days in, it's been so long. So I guess I want to say, in terms of like the context of the game, like maybe it is a little early to trying to start sabotaging the games of the other tribe members. You know, like really showing your cards where it's like, this is how I'm thinking about playing this game. So I think with Thomas doing that, it definitely shows his hand. And of course, like that's why players like Shaheen are gonna like start clocking him, being like, man, like that's the kind of villain or the kind of player that Thomas is. And I think when you make a decision to kind of show people how you're gonna play this game or how you're thinking about playing this game, it it's gonna raise those alarms, and it's going to really change how players want to play the game with you. It's like the butterfly effect, right? And every
Mm-hmm.
little decision that you make right now is going to have so many different outcome variations just in the future.
Absolutely. And in thinking about just the different ways that things can go, I'm reminded of how even on the Siva tribe, when put in a similar position of having an advantage of sorts, Kyle finds it and just hands it off to Camilla for Camilla to solve. As I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, Camilla, like go Camilla. The way that she solved that puzzle, Rob, was genius. Using the sand, writing it on her leg, if she has this kind of brain and thinking, I feel like Camilla could be a chameleonaire. And I don't know if that should be her stands community nickname now, the chameleonaires. But if you're listening to this, I coined that term, you know. Wink, wink. Uh, so I just love seeing that moment of that interaction between the two. It reminds me of that again, sticking together with the tribe, specifically in sticking together with the people that you know you want to work with instead of just using the information that you have for yourself.
Couldn't agree more. And it's so cool how like in the game of Survivor that you have these moments that are so similar on each tribe, and they're just juxtaposed, and you see how people have the same situation and the same stimuli and completely just make different decisions. And I think that's why I keep coming back to Survivor, just trying to understand, well, how do these people think? Why are they acting this way? And every moment, I just can't get enough of these, you know, like honestly, it was so cool to see Kyle and Camilla like work together to get the idol. That's a duo that I'm going to have a lot of fun rooting for this season.
Same, same. And lastly, just to talk about the Green Tribe, we see on Vula, as you mentioned before, what I'm seeing as the opposite of a duo, like your nemesis in some ways. Say and Mary. Mary voted for Say. Say is like, girl, why did you vote for me? Really? And when it comes to this next part of the episode where everybody on each of these tribes has a chance to go on a journey. And in going on this journey or practicing to pick who's going to go on this journey, Say gets it the first time around. They're like, whoa, 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 it's practice. It's practice. Say's like, nah, I got it. It's me. Let me do it. You know, individual game versus team. It's mine. I'm getting on that boat. And they're like, no, let's do it again. And then Mary wins it. If I'm Say, I would be pissed too because you let my op get on a boat to win an advantage when she voted for me. Like what? I completely understand her frustration in that moment. Did you have any thoughts about just the even the way that this journey was decided through this new challenge instead of how it was previously with just a tribe discussion?
Insert Liz saying I'm pissed. I think that is exactly how Say would be feeling it. Honestly, I about that, I was really I don't know, like maybe it was kind of funny from my perspective. See, like I definitely laughed when Say did not get her way because I've been waiting for that moment because everything that Say has said, Say's gotten. And you can't whatever the saying is, but you can't have every decision work out for you. So I'm happy that there
Yeah.
was like one little hiccup in Say's mind, and that the time to go like to the journey was just taken from her. But about like how they went about like needing to like throw down like the odd number, like I don't know, it was kind of weird. I don't know, like I think I kind of like the tried discussion better because it
Hmm.
really shows who is in a more socially okay position to speak up and be like, "Hey, I'm willing to go," right? Or someone is very clearly on the bottom and they're like, "I have so much motivation to go for this journey." And maybe the idea is to kind of conceal those thoughts in your position on the tribe. But it was definitely funny when Mary's like, "No, no, no, that was a trial run. Like, let's run it back," you know?
Yeah, I'm a little bit on the opposite side. I really do feel like I like it random like this, where it's in some ways part luck, but it gives people who are at the complete bottom a chance to go on the journey. Because if I'm at the bottom and I'm like, hey, I want to go, if you know, it was a position where Star could have advocated to say, hey, let me go on this boat, and the rest of the tribe would have been like, no, we're all gonna want to go. So now we're all gonna draw sticks. It sort of disrupts that whole journey of getting to that point and just gives you a chance to just go on there yourself. So I'm a little bit on the opposite side. But from this, we do see there's a couple folks who do get to go on this journey. Those people being Thomas, Mary, and Mitch. Ultimately, they find themselves on this beach where they go separate journeys, go separate paths on this journey to complete this little challenge. Mary didn't win, unfortunately. Um, but there's a win in Thomas and a win for Mitch. They get a block a vote and a still a vote, respectively. What do you think about this whole journey and game that they played and just everything around it?
I think my biggest takeaway from the journey was when coming back to their tribes, how
Hmm.
Thomas and Mitch and Mary all went about sharing the information of what happened at the journey. Because you have Mary who lost a vote and then tells her tribe that she lost the vote. Mitch wins the block a vote and then tells his tribe that he has the block a vote. And then you have
Hmm.
Thomas wins the steal a vote and then lies. He lies to his tribe about losing his vote.
I loved it. I loved every part of Thomas lying. I mentioned it earlier, but I love a good anti-hero in some ways, but in the sharing and seeing just the different paths that people take to sharing information, it just reminds us that everything in Survivor is a choice. And even though Mary had a little trek and lost her vote, she still had the choice to tell the truth or tell a lie. So Mary decides to tell the truth, and even in her telling the truth about not getting anything, that still in itself is a choice that she made, and that's just another reason why I love Survivor.
I such a weird decision from my perspective for Mary to tell everyone that she doesn't have a vote when she received a vote, or when she was left out of the vote at the last tribal council, clearly on the bottom. Maybe it feels like she's on the outside and she's like, "Yep, I don't have a vote. Okay, guys, I'm just free feeding for the wolves right now. Like, I'm just gonna lay right here. I'm totally vulnerable." It's just an interesting strategy.
It worked out. I will say it did work out because if she lied about it, then people were thinking she still has her vote. She can play her shot in the dark. In some ways, I feel like it brings down her threat level in that round. And in some ways, it worked out in that way where she didn't seem like the best option to take out because she was not a danger. She didn't have any power. Literally, no vote, no shot in the dark. There's no chance for her to come for you in this round. So, in some ways, you can put her on a pause and not quote unquote waste a tribal council getting her out when there's somebody who you might think you're aligned with who might be throwing your name out there, which is what happened with Kevin.
You know that.
Speaking of,
Yeah. No, 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 no. That makes a lot of sense. Especially in the way that like Survivor players play the game now, where it's like they're always looking for who that next vote could be. And it's like, well, if we know that we have this person that we all agree on that will vote out, like, well, let's just take out this person at that right time. And it's like she almost felt it was just feeding into that idea where it's like, yeah, I'm just helplessly on the bottom, take me out whenever. Now, she didn't say those words, but that's definitely like the way that I guess that she was acting. Those are the thoughts that come into mind of the other players, as you were saying.
hmm and speaking of other players, there's some players with some interesting features. We are going to the Siva tribe to talk about the title of this episode, their humble traits. Rob, I just want to show you a little quick visual of some humble traits in action.
Tim, hold up. When you say you're going to be showing us some of their humble traits, you're not just going to be showing us like David milking himself right now, are
No,
you?
no, 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 no.
Okay.
I don't think YouTube would allow that on their
I don't
platform
know.
in
He's
any way.
talking about milking himself on Survivor on CBS. I don't know what YouTube's going to allow, but
Maybe not the visuals of it all. Maybe not the visuals. But speaking of visuals, there's this one little visual that I think really captures a humble trait in action. And that's my humble trait, Rob, because I am refrigerator heighted. That is my humble trait. Being a short king means a lot to me. But that's one way that I feel like God nerfed me, or I was just nerfed in this way. I can't see the top of it. I can reach the top of it. If it's cereal up here, Rob, I can grab it. I'm gonna have to get on my tippy toes, but it'll be grabbed at the end of the day. So that's my humble trait. What
you know,
about
I
you?
I think saying that someone is refrigerator, I don't know.
Heighted?
It's so subjective. Whatever the terminology was, it's subjective because for me with my fridge, I have to be on my tippy toes because I'm also a short king too. Like I'm pretty much to get like my pre-workout and stuff. I have to jump up to then be able just to grab everything off of the fridge and then land smoothly. So I'm right there with you that my height is definitely a limiting factor for me. But I think another thing, like what my trait would be, my humble trait is I could be talking to you literally 2 feet, our faces right there with each other, and I will not be able to hear the words coming out of your mouth sometimes. When there is so much stimuli and noises all around me, it's like I just can't hear someone. So I'd say like my hearing is just my humble trait because I pick up the door slamming 50 yards away or the pitter patter of footsteps approaching. And then I get so concentrated on those things, I forget that there's someone right in front of my face talking to me. So I think that's my humble trait.
Yeah, that's that's also me too. I love a good whenever somebody's talking to me because I literally cannot hear them even though like you mentioned they're right there. We've talked so much or we've seen so much about these humble traits. I want to hear about hero traits. Like I can wiggle my ears. Like, wait, let me give a demonstration. Like
Oh
Like
yeah.
yeah, you know, like I can pop the knuckles on like my front fingers. There's hero traits too. So it's not just humble traits with being fridge hided for me. There's hero traits too. And I'm sure all the players in the game have hero traits as well.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call this a hero trait, but one thing I can do is like click my tongue with like the roof of my mouth, and it makes a really loud noise. So it goes like, and what I'll do like
Wow.
in a
Wait. Whoa, you can't just drop that and move forward because echolocation? Hello? Uh, you
no,
were
but
saying.
every once in a while, like at the hospital, when the patients are just like walking around and I'm like on their tail, like I'll just go like, and they'll be like, "What was that?" And then I'm just standing there, just like like a little statue, and I'm like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." Just start gaslighting them, and I'm like, "Oh, it's the auditory hallucinations you guys are experiencing. I should be fired." I'm just kidding. I
Well,
don't actually do that at the hospital. I do a very good job with my job.
yes, yes, I believe you. And there's a couple players this episode that I think do a incredible job at the game of Survivor. So I think it's time we talk about them. Let's go to the Torchy Awards. At the Torchy Awards, the second annual Torchy Awards for this season of Survivor, I am going to segue right into this episode's nominees for Tim's Torchy Award. Drumroll, please. My nominees are Say and Cedric. Cedric, on one hand, had a little bit of a rough challenge start, but knows where the idol is, knows that he's in this middle position between all of the people on his tribe, was able to make Say use her idol and also voted in the majority. On the other hand, you have Say. Say has the idol herself, got someone who was targeting her out of the game, essentially maneuvered her way to working with everybody in her tribe and getting again the person who was after her out of the game. And it seems like if you say Say's name, you go home. You don't have to say it 3 times. You say her name once and it's over with. I hope that Mary isn't next because I do like Mary. I am a Mary stan as well as a Say stan. I know it's difficult to do both. But ultimately, Rob, the winner of my award for this episode is none other than Say.
I think that's a great pick. I really do. Say played the game very well this episode, which leads pretty fluently or pretty well into Rob's picks nominees for the Torchy Award. On one hand, I did have Say as well as a nominee. I loved the way that they played the game. And the other nominee for the Torchy Award for me this week was Camilla. For Say, I just like really echoing every single word that you said. Had the information right there, like it's just Say's just done a really good job making those relationships with people. Yes, everyone can say that she's been very aggressive, but she's here. She's made it through the first tribal councils. And I think one of the biggest arguments for Say was that she did not panic when she heard from Cedric that her name was
Mhm.
thrown out there. She didn't really change course, and she listened to the alliance members. And I think that was something that was just different about maybe our expectations for her rather than just going full blown aggressive. And she was able to play that little bit of a low key game. So she's gotten hers and she's been able to play the game that her other tribe mates are playing as well. And it was really good for her to be maybe not a sheep in this game, but just working with her alliance members. And for me, for Camilla, I I really love how last episode she was able to get that 4-person alliance. So she's really playing manipulating the game in her favor. And we see it in this episode when Kyle trusts her with finding and unlocking the Beware advantage to turn into an idol. And she does that for him. And I think it's really good for her game, that she's the one with the information that knows that Kyle's the one with the idol. Kyle trusts her. And it's almost better that everyone will end up knowing that Kyle's the one with the idol, and she knows where it is. She knows how to manipulate it. She will be able to get the information. And I honestly think both these people really deserve the Torchy Award from me, but there can only be one. And for me, the person who wins the Torchy Award for episode 2 is also Say.
Snaps, snaps, snaps all around. I completely agree. 4-time Torchy Award nominee, 2-time winner now, both in one episode. That's the first of this season. Hopefully, there'll be more to come as well. But Say, again, absolutely killed it. Huge shout out to this straightforward, confident, I'm going to get my way gameplay that she's having. And it's really working out for her. And I hope it continues to work out because it's entertaining as well. And it's strategic also.
Now, let me ask you just about the vote and tribal council itself. Do you think
Mhm.
Kevin was the right decision?
Oof, it's tough. If you think about their challenge performance, maybe not. Because he seems like one of the more physically adept players on their tribe, only on appearance, the challenge itself didn't necessarily go great for tribe strength, quote unquote, in that challenge at least, or in the first one. However, comma, he was someone who was targeting someone within his own alliance, and also when the other option was someone who was defenseless, literally defenseless. If we're thinking about past Survivor players, Sandra always says, as long as it's not me. And I think in Kevin's attempt to take a little bit more of a hands on control aspect of that game, that led to the decision of other players targeting him. And for those other players, that was the best decision for them because Kevin was a strategic threat in his right, and that's something to be proud of. But for them, I do think that was the right decision at that moment.
I agree too. I think one thing that really stands out to me is that Say knew that she didn't want to work with Mary, at least at this point of the game. She doesn't want to work with Mary at all. But then she starts hearing those little whispers of, hey, like Kevin's throwing your name out there. And she gets that intel from Cedric and from Justin. So I think it really shows Say's ability to take a step back, listen to the other alliance members, and move forward with the two people that you really trust in this game. And you keep
Mhm.
that enemy that you know is your enemy right now still in arm's length of you in Mary. And getting that player who is threatening, who's good at challenges, is a sociable guy in Kevin out of this game. So I really do I was a little surprised that they didn't end up going for Mary because you see the need of this tribe to actually win a challenge. It's just so apparent, but I don't know. I
Mhm.
think it was a good decision. I really do.
I agree. I agree. And shout out to Kevin's game because Kevin wasn't gonna just sit around and let the game happen to him. He made that attempt to gain a little bit more control, get somebody who he viewed as a threat to his game out, and that is admirable. And it shows the insight into strategy that he had and the way that he was thinking forward in the game. It didn't work out this time around, but he did represent and showcase the elements of Survivor that we know and love through and through.
I think one aspect that maybe we don't see a lot of this, and I'm just assuming here, like just making an assumption, but I think Kevin is a very sound social strategic game player, and he
Mhm.
wasn't just going to give his thoughts without knowing or like, without at least feeling that he was kind of safe talking to the person and confiding with them in like his plans and stuff. So I think when he's telling Justin like, "Hey, these are my like real true honest thoughts about Say," I think he felt super freaking comfortable with Justin. And then Justin being able to kind of pull the strings of that vote when he brings that information to Cedric, which then goes to Say. But Justin has that relationship with Kevin. I think we don't get a lot of that juice, that meat on the bone with Justin being very in control of this vote. And I don't know if that's just a sign to come, like a sign for things to come where he just doesn't necessarily have that power. But Kevin's not dumb. He's not going to be saying those things unless he really felt like the three guys alliance was truly solid. And I think Justin had done a really good job this round of just being able to use the information to his benefit.
Absolutely. His name was not tossed around once. Neither was Cedric's at this point either. And even though we haven't seen much of him quite yet, he does seem to have a good strategic head on his shoulders as well in pushing forward the vote for Kevin also. Well, speaking of pushing forward, I think it's time for a challenge, Rob. You up for it?
I'm so down.
All right. I think it's time to steal the bacon. All right, so if you're just listening, this is Still the Bacon, the segment where me and Rob take on a little bit of a challenge for each other. This episode's challenge is Subjective Survivor Guess Who. In front of us, we have 5 players who have played Survivor, and it's our task to guess who our player is, but only using subjective questions. If you're just listening, these players consist of Brando, Genie, Jam Jam, Owen, and Kelly. Rob, I already know who your person is. You know who my player is. I'll go first in my first question. How it'll work, there's 3 questions and you have to make your final guess. My first question, Rob, does this person know what a stan is?
I would hope that my person knows what a stan is. So I'm going to go with yes.
Okay. They know what a stan is. Okay. Second question, Rob. Would this person blindside me?
I'm going to go with no.
Oh, okay. This person wouldn't blindside me. That's interesting. Okay, my final question. I feel like I'm down between 2 options right now. Could this person beat me in a Pokemon match?
Oh man, I don't even know if they're a Pokemon enthusiast, but Tim, I don't think anyone could beat you in a Pokemon match, so I'm gonna go with no.
Wow. Okay, my final guess is my person Owen.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
Let's go. Nice job. Nice job.
Nice. Thank you. All right, Rob, your turn.
All right. Let's see. Hmm. Does your person, are they a person that would fuck up a plate of spaghetti?
Yes.
Okay. I love me some spaghetti. That's like my go-to Sunday night meal with my family. Get some pasta, get some spaghetti. Love that. Okay. All right. For my second question, does your person have some villainous aspects to their game? Like, do they play like a villain in some ways?
There are villainous aspects, so yes.
All right. I'm between 2 people right now. Okay. For my third and final question, do you think you will see your person on season 50 of Survivor?
That's tough. I'm gonna say no. I can't say why, but I'm gonna say no.
Okay. Is your person Kelly?
It's not.
Fuck, damn it. Who was it?
It was Jam Jam.
You don't think? See, I was between
Jam
Kelly
won.
and Jam Jam. Jam Jam's totally. What are there not going to be winners on season 50? Because I feel like. Did Jeff say that? I think there should be. It should be people who embody Survivor, and Jam Jam is so clearly a player that embodies Survivor in my mind. And when you said no, I'm thinking like, nah, I feel like he's like not like a lock for season 50, but like, oh my god, damn it. It's right there. I'm staring him in the face. I'm looking at his big, beautiful smile, and I'm like, yeah, I feel like Tim is picking Jam Jam, but that third question, man. Man,
personally, I don't know. I don't think winners are gonna be on 50. At least I wouldn't want winners to be on 50. It's like you won. Yes, you do represent Survivor greatly. I'm looking at it as a second chance in some ways, even though it's not second chance necessarily. So,
okay, okay, that's fair, I guess.
but yeah, shout out to Subjective Survivor Guess Who. Let us know how you think you would have done, what kind of questions you would have asked to try to figure out your person. This was quite a fun game. And Rob, I think it's time we go and answer some questions before we wrap up this great second episode. Rob, I think it's time to talk about mailing a vote. All right, Rob, this question comes from one of our listeners from last episode, Mr. Humble Pie himself. Jay West. He asks, "What is playing hard?" This is the question I have for episode one because I agree with the strategy with getting a majority alliance and isolating two players just in case of two early tribal councils. Rob, what do you define as playing hard?
I guess from my perspective, what's playing hard? That is sharing your thoughts, your strategic plans, how you think about other people with your tribe mates, and then trying to act on those thoughts in a very quick manner rather than kind of letting the game come to you, trying to figure out like just who do you have good vibes with, who do other people have good vibes with. Because I think the kind of it really depends on the pace of play, right? You're answering these questions the whole time you're out there playing Survivor, but that tempo that you're playing the game with, I think that really depends on how hard you're playing. And it's always in relation to the other players on your tribe that you're playing with. Because not necessarily like not everyone is going to be playing a hard game, but there's going to be someone who's playing the hardest game out of everyone, the quickest game, the fastest game. That pace of play, that's what really it makes players visible in like who's playing hard, who's not. What do you think?
I think playing hard means scrambling in my head. Playing hard gives the vision of being deceitful, lying to different people, being sloppy in your gameplay to where your strategy and efforts to win the game are a bit too obvious. Whether you're pulling in a lot of people to try to form an alliance while creating a side alliance with the people that you isolated before, whether that looks like noticeably going missing because you're looking for an idol or advantage. So for me, playing hard means playing a little sloppy or playing a little less discreet. And in recognizing and reminding people that, oh, this is a game that we're on, that's playing hard. If somebody can look at what you're doing and say, oh, shoot, we're on Survivor, you're playing hard. So that's how I define it.
Okay. Now I'm thinking back to my answer and how I think players can play hard but not be visible, right? And those are the really good players. Do you think we have any of those players this season that are playing hard but aren't necessarily like showing their cards?
Hmm. Even though we haven't seen much of the two other tribes, I'm gonna have to stick with Vula just because we've seen what that looks like for them to go to tribal council. I am actually gonna say Cedric. I say Cedric because he's in a social position where he's not on the bottom. He has been able to do slight things like still getting Say to play her idol when Say didn't have to. I'm reading that as a strategic move. I'm not entirely sure if that's the case, but if that is what is happening, I think that's playing hard or playing well, I would say. Another option I have is Camilla. Would I say playing hard? Not necessarily, but playing well. Yes, she was working on establishing a cross tribal alliance with Star. That could be something that comes into the picture. She helped solve this idol for her tribe, and she's also in a majority alliance. Another reason why she could be the Kamillionaire in my mind. What
I
about
think
you?
those are two great picks. I think, yeah. Definitely agree. I think one player that's playing really hard, but hasn't necessarily been like fully outed yet is probably Thomas. And I think you see
Mm,
that with the California Girls Alliance, his side alliance with Bianca, the fact that he's willing to put out the idea to Shaheen to sabotage Star's Idol. Uh yeah. I think that's if you want to look at a player that is playing hard, that is maybe a little bit more concealed, but still playing that aggressive kind of way, I think you point to Thomas.
hmm. That's a great point. Make sure y'all let us know what y'all are thinking in terms of how do you define playing hard as a viewer? How are you looking at people who are playing the game in different ways? And let us know. Also, send us your questions. You can send a video to our Instagram page over at Split the Vote Podcast on Insta. You can leave a question in the comments. You could be the next question that we answer in this Mellow Vote segment. And again, shout out to Jay West for this amazing question that we had this time around. So, for folks listening, you can find us over at Split the Vote Podcast over on Instagram. You can find us on the Purple Pants podcast, specifically the Bryce Isaiah YouTube channel, because again, this is a Purple Pants powered production. You can find me, Tim, over on Instagram at TimSagramB. Rob, where can the people find you?
You can find me at R Polworth on Instagram, and also check out our Spotify too if you want to head over there and just want to listen to the audio version. Also on the Bryce Isaiah Survivor page too.
Cool. Well, Rob, it's been Tim. It's been Rob. It's been Split the Vote. Peace.